to
It
it that
looks
makes it.
childish. It looks childish.
But putting a black rim makes it look like, well, I don't even know what it looks like. It's just. Why would you do that? You're making extra work for yourself.
Hello and welcome to Hobby Hammer issue 16. I'm joined today, as always, by Miles,
Hello. Hello.
who still hates introducing the cast. Leave a comment below if you think Miles should be the one introducing from now on, simply because he hates it.
Yeah, I always feel like I launch into it and then I trip up and then I swear a lot and then I just have to redo it a few times. And it always feels whatever I have to say on the entry is always asinine. Like,
I
how can
don't
I
think that's just
introduce
on the
this?
entry.
No, how can I say this in a new, interesting, dynamic way? Hello, welcome to the podcast. Whatever the issue, whatever this vlog thing is we're doing. Hey, we're here again. You're listening. Welcome.
Yeah. So today, on
That's
the
why I don't
menu...
introduce it. That's why I don't introduce it, because the entire thing just came to a stuttering halt then. What are we doing today? News. What news? Because you've been teasing me with news. Are we doing news first?
Yeah, there is a news item,
News.
and I've said it's a very small news item. So Miles,
Mm.
you can look at the Discord now, where
Yeah,
I've
you teased me with
posted.
this special. Okay, so I'm seeing the gun emplacements from Necromunda.
Yeah, and that's what I was incredibly excited about.
Is that it?
I'm far too excited about these gun emplacements for what I should be excited. Do you know, like, the level of excitement for them is far beyond how much they
No,
deserve, because I
weirdly,
love gun emplacements.
I'm right there with you. Ever since Aliens, that scene where the automated turrets are just mowing down hundreds of aliens coming at you. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's one of these sort of like quality of life releases for
Mm.
Necromunda. It's not like a Psyker. It's not Lord Hellmauer. It's not a new gang. It's just something. Do you remember when the launch of Ninth Edition, they released this special edition, a sort of like character scenery pack where you had
Mm.
like this uh, a little robot working on this Tyranid specimen. You had like all these little scattered terrain pieces, very characterful. That's what this feels like a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fully there with you. You know what? I'd like to see them on bases. I'd like to see them on bases.
Foreshadowing. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Um, yeah, well, shall we get into what we've been doing, actually? Because that was about the extent of, I think, what we can talk about, what people will be interested in, like, I'm saying that in quotations for anyone
Mm.
that's listening.
Well, okay, because I'm not a gamer guy. I'm just going to buy these because I like the look of them. Do you need like multiple packs of these to run in a gang in your scenario? How many of these will you be buying?
We're talking games. We can go into that. So,
Mm.
by the reading of the article, they're like bought as war gear, kept in the gang's stash, like a piece of terrain,
Hmm.
um, like the gang relics that you can buy, or fuel cans for Orlocks, things like that. Now,
Mm.
by the looks of it, they seem incredibly good. So you place them down along with a
Hmm.
fighter, put them to
Mm.
a position that you want them in, and then
Mm.
every time someone finishes an action within their vision arc, they
Hmm.
shoot at them. So depending
That's
on how
awesome.
good the ballistic skill is,
Hmm.
they seem incredible. Just every time someone finishes an action, they shoot, which could just be game breakingly good to
Hmm.
absolutely rubbish depending on ballistic skill.
Hmm.
And that is the extensive speculation I think that we can go into based on a Warhammer community article.
So we
Yeah.
were talking about before the show how most of what we talk about here is, wasn't it better way back when? Wasn't it good back in the day when there were Goblin Green bases and all that? But I have to say, I much prefer modern Necromunda over old Necromunda. I
Yeah,
think it's an improvement.
I think the flow of the game works much
Hmm.
better. The vibe of the setting,
Hmm.
I don't know, because it's more set up like paramilitaries fighting each other. So like each
Yes.
squad of
Okay.
dudes that you get ends up like
Yeah,
being
I can
better
see that.
equipped than a Space
Hmm.
Marine tactical squad.
Yeah.
and with more
But
fabulous
then
guns.
again, should that be the onus be put more on the games master or on the campaign to limit that style of escalation? I don't know. It's an open-ended question. But one of the reasons why I like New Necromunda is that I always found you got to a certain point with your gang, you had a load of stash, you're just buying more fighters, buying more bolt guns, buying more plasma weaponry. I like that you have the variety to spend your stash on things like this now. I like that there's more variety. I like the alternate turn activations, setting. The new miniatures look great. The old miniatures, great. I mean, with these gun emplacements as well, I have to say they look super easy to paint. Get some metal color from Vallejo, spray them, pale burnt metal, spray away, oil them, perfect.
Are you going to do a video tutorial of how to paint them? Because I want to
I
see that
will.
process within
I
that.
will.
Like
It'll be an
some
art of
dry brush,
compromise.
Vulcan metal.
Yeah,
Where's the
we could do a dry
underpainting?
brush, we could do an airbrush, and no underpainting on this. No, this is greasy, hard military hardware. This isn't some
But
Ponzi elf that we're
how
dealing with.
how will I see the reflection of the environment in them if there's no underpainting?
You asked that question sardonically,
Ooh.
but what you can do, you can take. So, for example, if you have like fluorescent lighting above, it has this sort of like bluish green tinge to it. So you just do all the normal metallics with the airbrush or the dry brush stage, but then you take a silver green or silver blue, and then you put those on the top, reflecting the environmental effects. So there you go.
Touche.
That's your answer.
Called out on my own
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah. Well, interesting point, Max. But yeah, I love these. Yeah, more of this kind of stuff, please.
Yeah, do you know, it reminds me of the stuff when you were saying like the character basing pack. Battle for Macragge that they recently re-released that everyone only
Yes.
wanted pretty much the terrain from, but that terrain,
Uh-huh.
these useless things, I think my love of useless things and that's why I brought up these guns.
Yeah.
My love of useless things comes from Battle for Macragge terrain, where you've got the crashed Aquila lander and like the force pylons that had no usage in game outside of that set, and the spore crawler things. Yeah.
What's the
Golden
egg in
Age.
Necromunda? What's the egg in Necromunda? Like the really rare. Oh no, the vase, the mung vase.
Mung vase, yeah.
Have we got a model for that yet?
I don't know. Shall we Google it and come back in a second?
Yes, we should.
So there is a Mung vase, and we both found the same listing on eBay to be our example of one. If anyone knows where this Mung vase is from, it's number 29 of a kit somewhere in the entire range. Yeah, if anyone knows where the Mung vase is from, please let us know, so I can have useless vases on some models. Oh,
Yeah.
an amazing objective marker.
I guess we should 3D print them, right? Because you'd be able to get some pretty ornate mung vase. But okay, no, sidetracking too much. Okay, what's the meat and bones of the episode, Max?
So the meat and bones of the episode is what we've been doing, and that's because we last night we discussing like what should we do today. Well, there's the UK Games Expo, but we couldn't go down because you were busy, selfishly.
Oh, and my wife is going to see Sarah Milligan tonight, so I couldn't deprive her of that once in a lifetime experience.
Well, at least she's got a distinctive voice.
You know, I'm going to get a little bit blue here, so kids might want to leave the room right now, quieting it down. But I don't mind her going out with her friends. I don't mind her going out in the Raz, you know, because she's always a little bit more happy and bubblier when she comes back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I doubt Sarah Milligan's going to have the same effect on her. It's going to be come back, oh, how was she? Yeah, she was funny, and then go to bed. Great.
Right, okay.
Everyone knows what I mean. Everyone knows what I mean.
So, yeah, and
let's talk about different kind of action.
Speaking of stilted and abrupt ends to conversations.
Yeah.
UK Games Expo. We'll do that next week potentially.
Is anything being released? Is anything being Is there like I don't think there is a preview. No.
No idea.
Yeah.
Maybe
they're just selling stuff.
I might pop down tomorrow, but
okay,
because tickets are still available, and that's we're recording this on the 31st, so if you're listening to this on the 31st, you could still get there on the Saturday or Sunday. But yeah, we then went into what we were doing, and then that spawned an entire conversation. So I've done this damsel as a quick paint job. I needed it for a game, so I broke my
But can we
rule for my.
I want to linger on it a little bit because this is one of my favorite sculpts. This
Really?
is one of my favorite. Yeah. So it's something about the Perry twins sculpts. The damsel on foot, the damsel on horse, like the Bretonian yeoman, the
This damsel on horse, Miles.
exactly, yeah.
So that's that one.
When you paint them, they have a really nice feel underneath the brush, because they were sculpted to scale, and just as you're okay, yeah, we could certainly veer into that, like, we look at her, but it's just a very nice sculpt paint, and I think even if you are like a lower or like a beginner or intermediate painter, if you just paint this neatly, you just paint this miniature neatly, hell, just do a contrast paint, so you're going to end up with a very high quality result because of how good the underlying sculpt is. Yeah, and you've done a fantastic job on it as well, which brings out even more. I mean, did you enjoy painting her? I guess you did, since you veered off your plan.
Do you know what I did? Like I was like, I need it for a game, and then spent 3 hours just really happily doing.
Yeah.
Like I airbrushed under, like shaded everything, pre-shaded everything, then just went up from there into whites, doing glazes of whites in the right areas, contrasted bits that I fancied contrasting. I couldn't paint in between the lines like Miles with yellows. I got a bit of red on the gold there. But it was a really nice, enjoyable sculpt to paint, as you say.
Sometimes you forget that miniature paint is meant to be relaxing. It's meant to be fun. I mean, when you're bashing your way through like 30 infantry, like in this horde formation, that little reprieve of painting a character miniature where you could just happily ignore the clock, ignore the timer, and just spend 3, 4, 5 hours just happily just playing with the silk on her dress. Yeah, perfect.
Well, that's it. He's so different to a lot of the ranges that are in at least fantasy, because it's even the background behind the model is they're meant to be unworldly damsels in this horrible world where peasants give up 90% of their pay to lords that don't care, and sort of like ride roughshod all over the land defending against orcs. And it just allowed that difference in sort of paint style and mindset as I went through it. So yeah, really enjoyed painting it. Let's get onto what you did this week, because this is more the thing.
So this is the very first miniature painted for the Warriors of Chaos army. The squad has been painted. He has been painted for a while. The stumbling block I've found is actually getting enough square bases. Once I found a manufacturer, I bought the entire army's worth of bases, just all in one, because I'm not sure when they're going to come back into production again. So just bought the entire lot, which has meant I've spent this past week, or past month rather, in between traveling for work and for with the family, rebasing the entire army. And I want, so this little guy, he is small in comparison to the new plastics, so I give him a little bit of a buffer, like a small man syndrome, a little bit Napoleon complex. I've had him standing on top of a dragon skull, and that was the theme of the basing for this force, right? They're in a dragon graveyard to make it a little bit more interesting, but I wasn't sure exactly conceptually how to get it over the line. So you say dragon graveyard, what exactly, how does that translate in the actual paint scheme? And then I think it was NRM Painting who on Instagram, he's posted up a Chaos Warrior from this era, and he's entering into an Olden Demon competition, and the basing scheme just struck lightning in me. I'm like, oh my god, that's perfect, because it's very much like the basing from the 3rd, 4th, 5th edition Chaos books, and especially the Paul Sawyer, which we'll be talking about in a lot more depth later on in the episode. But it was a Goblin Green base with a dark brown top with some tufts. Mwah, perfect. And I mean, looking at the miniature, we were chatting about this beforehand, how I think if I went like super realistic, super grimdark with it, it wouldn't have worked. The sculpt's kind of goofy, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, it's a good, and I've given it a bit of a goofy paint job, like bright red, bright colors, then a very high sheen to the metallics. It's very fantasy-esque. It's a little bit more light-hearted than, say, my COVID lockdown project was. And having this more light-hearted approach to the base, I think, frames it better than a black rim base.
Yeah, I think it leans into sort of the brighter fantasy,
Mm.
like design it, like the design of the model being like, is it a fifth ed Chaos Warrior?
It's a warrior. It's a Warhammer Quest miniature, sculpted by Ali Morrison.
It was like late 90s, I imagine,
Yes, yeah.
like
Hmm.
prime red era,
Hmm.
where you did have these Goblin Green bases, and having that sort of massively over the top metal artwork,
Axe.
that
Yeah,
yeah, and the
yeah,
axe and everything,
yeah.
I think is served quite well by having the green base.
Hmm.
And we sort of then started discussing like what the hell has
Bases.
gone on with bases for the past
Yeah.
20 years, because
Hmm.
I actually, was there any basing styles before, like, that's, this sounds stupid, but was there any specific basing styles before Goblin Green bases that you can think of? That was the first one that I was introduced to and remember,
Oh my
and I
God.
don't think I
Okay,
ever
so
went
we're
back from
looking
before
sort of like
that.
the realms of chaos
Yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah.
I think it was a little bit more chaotic then, as it was still finding its feet. I mean, in the original Realms of Chaos books, there's a two-page document by John Blanche talking about how you use acrylic paints, how you use inks to wash. I don't think it's a little bit like. Have you seen early Christmas card art?
No, no. Let's
Right.
return
Okay.
with some early Christmas card art.
Yeah.
So we've gone with the frogs as the selection that
Yeah,
we've
so
picked.
that we give various selections from a beetroot man to a very demonic looking Krampus who's stealing a child with this big lascivious red tongue to just a polar bear attacking a man. Just straight up, this polar bear just ravaging a man. Send that card for Christmas. Well done. So the point I'm trying to make is that early bases don't have a accepted standard. There's no shared imagery for it. It's just whatever, do whatever you like. And then Goblin Green became the standard, became the
Yeah,
basis, became the standardized base from which all bases flourished. The Tree of Life, the genesis of the Tree of Life.
yeah, and that's something that carried on through. So next we've got this picture of some beastmen within sort of like, I think this is like the fifth ed beasts
Mm-hmm.
codex or realms of chaos, that is
Mm-hmm.
got Goblin Green standard flock on the top, like flat flock on the
Yeah.
top.
Do you
Suppose.
remember how they sold this green flock with like the little blue band on top? You used to get like a load of it for a
Mhm.
fiver. PVA glue on the top, and there's like this very soft material, sprinkle on top, allow it to dry, a little bit of sunburst yellow, gently dry brush over the top, perfection.
Oh, the sunburst yellow dry brush, yeah.
Sunburst,
That,
yeah,
or the scorpion green, and because you're young, you just do it far
yes,
too heavy, and it just
hmm,
becomes this scorpion green, horrendous
yeah,
yellow base. But it fitted in quite nicely because they were going for the overall tone of both 40k and fantasy,
hmm.
maybe based on what they could actually produce at the time.
Bright.
Well,
That's what bright, eye-catching, eye candy for children to lure them in. Look at this bright, colourful collection of beastmen and horrifically warped spawn in the corner.
yeah, but also the terrain that they were producing
Mm.
was grass mats. Like, it was a
Hmm. Yeah,
rollout
that's
like
right.
flock
Oh,
mat,
it was a
and
nightmare.
you
Do
got
you
maybe
have
like
one of
some.
those?
Yeah, of course. I've got one in the other room now, because like just in case it rolls
Have
up.
you got ball patches on there?
No, because it's never been used.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like
Yeah. Good.
it's
Good.
he's
Keep it that way.
literally he's literally there. It's not a Games Workshop one, but it's
Mhm.
never been
Okay.
used. It's just there, like, in case I can get anyone to play a third ed game with me. To be honest, like, that's what it's there for. Like, get some
Yeah.
jungle-esque trees like they were doing
Mhm.
at the time.
Oh,
Some ruins,
yeah.
spike cactus. Like, I think Eye of Horus
Mhm.
repopularized for about whenever they posted it.
So there's a former Games Workshop sculptor who's produced a 3D STL of that file. Dead Earth Miniatures. He did a lot of the Necromunda range, but yeah, he's redone some scouts available on STL, but he's redone that little famous cactus.
Perfect. And
Dangerous.
that was like a bright green and I believe red spikes on it.
Red spikes, yep. Green and red.
Just epitomised this era.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something you've gone back to in your basing.
Partly, yeah. And I've even got the Holy Grail. I've even got
what, the old paint pot?
The old Goblin Green. Yes. I've got it.
I can't believe. Did you actually use that specific one?
I used that actual specific Goblin Green on the base. Yes. Reject modernity.
So here we have a picture, I think, of what we're currently talking about, of like red era. Like, so you've got the red even tusks on the orc, very red Eldar, Necromancer or Chaos Wizard, I think, in the bottom. Yeah. Well, there's red on everything there. I'm literally naming all the red on every model in that picture.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it is very much the red era with Goblin Green bases and this the flock and dry
I wonder whether they had a deal on all this red paint. They're like, yeah, okay, let's take it. Let's just paint everything in red then.
Well, they're like, oh, what we'll do is we'll promote it and then buy it in such bulk because everyone's currently buying Games Workshop paints at this point. Citadel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there were no alternatives. I mean, we were chatting at the very beginning about the standardization of basing, and there was a 2-page article where in the Realms of Chaos book where James Blanche is talking about how you paint your miniatures and how he's moved away from using enamel paints to using acrylics and inks because you just get quicker results. I think that was a really big fundamental shift, and because acrylic paints are non-toxic, they're easy to produce, they're cheaper, you can sell them to parents of kids getting into this for the first place. So perfect. It all aligns, it all syncs up.
Comes together. And I think we get some... So we start as we get into... And this is going somewhere for the viewer, because we're going to give, like, why... what basing styles you can do on your own models at the end. There's a reason for it. Stick with us. It's going somewhere, we promise.
Or Goblin Green.
Yeah, well, you've got Goblin Green bases in like Sixth Ed Fantasy, along with sand and coloured sand. It's like the start of actually painting the base.
This is the evolution of the base, of the Games Workshop base, where you're moving away from just Goblin Green. And there are no tufts there, but there is static grass. So again, that's another change. You're moving from the flock into coloured basing tops. So the image you have up is the Ogre, the Tau, the Dark Elder.
Ogre? That is the Orcs and Goblin giant after the it's just a Diddy giant. He's just small. That's my favourite giant, that one. Out of all of them.
The Marauder giant.
Yeah, man. Like, well, he's the one that I was introduced to. And I think it just like, it's got a lot of character. It looked powerful.
It's your giant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you'll see on the base, it's not completely Goblin Green. It has a dark element on top with a little bit of static grass. So dark element, dry brush with bleached bone, static grass on top. So we're starting to see basing evolving. We're starting to see it take on different character. And they've even sneaked in right in the bottom right-hand corner. I think this came a lot later, a brown base. But I do want to talk about this in a little bit more depth later on. Max, could we please stick with green bases on the sides, but dark toppers? Because this really came into the forefront of my thinking in the second edition Realms of Chaos book. If you could load up the image, please, of the Beastman with the blue background.
Right, so here we have the Minotaurs from Paul Sawyer. Yeah. Path of Four Gamers,
thank you to my lovely assistant.
I can look.
Tale of Four Gamers, the very first Tale of Four Gamers. And this is where it really came into my consciousness. Like, you could do other basing other than just Goblin Green. So the Tale of... everyone knows what the Tale of Four Gamers is. I'm not going to explain what the concept is.
Can I admit something, Miles?
Oh, yes.
I never read the Tale of Four Gamers.
Oh, you got yourself a treat there.
Go back and stop what we're doing. Go back and actually read that. You see, it's one of them things that passed me by, and like whenever anyone does like, oh, let's do Taylor for Gamers, it's like I have no emotional connection to that
So
whatsoever.
this was so good because what I appreciated about it, they talked about the financial side of it as well. And it was at the time where Games Workshop were doing like 2-for-1 releases with new store openings or store anniversaries. So I think they got something like 30 quid a week. And you saw them very carefully and patiently budget things out, buy things, and build gradually over the months.
Mm.
Phenomenal series. Well worth checking out even now if you want to go back and buy like 30-year-old White Dwarfs.
I have
Highly
actually been doing
recommended.
that. Like
It's so
I
good.
caught the second one where they did the like the Nurgle army
Mm,
and like Stir River Patrol and
hmm.
things like that.
Yeah,
But I
excellent
missed the
series again.
original one.
Yeah,
So
but
yes,
but
you've got the
this is
Goblin
where
Green
we first saw
sides. Yeah.
this is where I first saw basing evolving, changing into doing something other than just flock and Goblin Green. This is where my eyes started to be opened at this point. And I think this is where it started to progress into the later editions, where you're starting to see brown bases, you're starting to see different tufts, you're starting to see different elements on there.
Mm. Yeah, and it suits the models at the time, as we were saying with your Chaos
Mhm.
Lord.
Yeah.
The stylistic choices. Whereas, say, well, let's go back to the brown base on the Marine
Hmm.
looks more serious than, say, especially the fantasy model or the Dark Eldar model, which have got more colour in the scheme.
Hmm.
And is almost like less serious in a way than that the Marine with like a dark golden stripe down. It looks more serious to me as a
Yeah,
paint job.
yeah.
So here we have the cork bases. Miles, why have you got me to pull up
Oh,
these?
this is the fad. Yes. So this cork basing is early 2000s. It's a little bit like Von Dutch. Cool at the time, highly sought after. Everyone was doing it. Everyone was into Von Dutch stuff. But it was a passing craze. And let's face it, Bear left off in the back. Now we have found in the past. This now we have found something from Rebels Grotto, which is a really good example of cork basing because they've not only glued the cork to the base and left as it is. No, they've broken it up, they've stylized it, they've worked at it. But the amount of people I just see used to see take cork basing, whack it on, and that was it. Oh,
Yeah,
it,
rip
it was
round
a, it
the
was a fad.
edges with a flat top. Like
Yeah.
if people really went out there and having that sort of, you can. I think you can still make really good tarmac looking
Mm,
bases with cork
yeah.
because it's got the right texture for that sort of like asphalt tarmac that you
Yeah.
get. So I do still think there's something to it, just maybe not in the way of making
There's
like
a place. There's
rocks
a place
that.
and time for it. Break it up, embellish it, make it part of the surrounding context. Don't just put a bit of cork on
Yeah.
and leave it at that. No, there is certainly a place, but it just seemed like OSL and airbrushing just swept the internet. And this is where we're starting to see the departure from what's happening in White Dwarf, and that being, I guess, the pulse of hobby
Mm,
and how you see trends within White Dwarf being put across the community. You're starting to see trends evolve online.
mm.
You're moving away from White Dwarf. You're moving away from centralized media. You're moving into the wide spectrum, and you see a lot more experimentation from here. And this is where
But
you
this is
start to
like
see basing explode.
yeah, this is like explosion of forums era as well, like pre Facebook, pre
Warseer.
anything like that. What well,
Yeah.
Warseer, Bolter and Chainsword, like things
Oh,
like Bolter and Chainsword. Like I think we
so good. It was
yeah.
so good.
So we've got that. What are some of the other fads? Like I'm just gonna scroll to see if there's any more pictures that we've got. No,
So some
we
of the other fads that have come and gone, Tufts, just blasting Tufts over absolutely everything, having rather mediocre jobs done on the bases, but elevating it
mm,
with just a shed load of Tufts on there. And Tufts have their place, like cork, but you can't just take a load of Tufts, blast them on your base, and call it done. Uh, Now, Tuft manufacturers, that's a whole industry that's taken off on itself. The best ones I've found, the most
Dimitri on
varied,
this.
gamer's grass.
By far for me. Like
Yeah.
not even close with the variation that's possible in there. as well as like
variation,
actual naturalistic
price,
looking.
ease to buy because they're everywhere. Yeah, Gamer's Grass tufts for me phenomenal. Like I habitually buy them, so whenever I need to get into like free shipping, I'll always chuck an extra tuft on there to throw in. Even my own basing series on Patreon and on the website is called Not Just Tufts, because basing is more than just tufts.
Yeah.
We did see a very small and short-lived fad for taking natural materials like bark from trees, uh, sand that you find on the side of the road, mud, dirt, grit, mulching it together. Man, I'm glad that fad's over.
Yeah, well, I think all of them have just evolved rather than been over now, because
Yes.
like utilizing different materials and like going into like hobbyist stores rather
Uh-huh.
than as in like train and
Mm-hmm.
model railway
Yeah.
hobbying, as well as military modeling stuff. All of that uses really successfully like random
Mm-hmm.
bits, and I think
Yeah.
these fads have ended up getting to a point where they're just into a wider whole rather
Yeah. And I
than.
think when you find something new as well, it's easy to over like put a hat on the hat. It's
Mm,
easy to just go mental with that new material. So you do see these cycles, these phases where you just go crazy with one type of material and then move on very quickly. But what I'm saying, between the cork, the tufts, the grit, the dirt, putting those all together, the synthesis, the balance, actually thinking through the process and then applying it, that's where you're starting to see really, really good basing. But we are we are overlapping, we are skimming over an absolute horrendous basing
I've already got the picture up,
style.
Miles. I've already got the picture up.
Yeah, this abomination
Yeah.
just shouldn't be allowed. Clear basing, wherever you fall down on the spectrum, clear basing, I think it has its place.
Miles is trying to mollify me before I launch off
Yeah.
into something.
So I mean, the quest, like Warhammer quest boards. I mean, you have those beautiful tiles. It's a shame not to be able to see them, and most of those miniatures can be glued onto clear bases easily. So I can understand why you'd want to do it, but basing is the context of your piece. It's the frame of your piece. It allows you to do so many different kind of movements with the miniature. You can tell different stories through your basing with every army you collect. Why would you want to completely strip out a whole element of your piece to replace it with dodgy little acrylic pieces of crap?
Right, so I will counter this by
Counterpoint.
yes.
As the acrylic lover.
I do not like clear bases under our current level of technology, right? We have we have the mindset, but we don't have the technology.
Okay.
Like we need to
What the
get to
hell does
like
that mean?
20
What are you talking about?
we need to get to like 2276 level tech clear bases. In that, like when you look
Right.
at a clear base, the idea being that it ties into
Uh-huh.
the board that you're playing on, whatever environment that
Yeah.
you're playing on, it
Mm-hmm.
ties into it. And I think that's an excellent idea for creating more cinematic games
Mm-hmm.
than actually we have when we have, even with a really well done base, you put a snow base
Mm-hmm.
onto a desert table and it looks
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And you do you know
Sure.
like any shots that you get
Yeah.
of the model during that game look a bit
Mm-hmm.
weird. They've got to have that like level of removal within your brain.
Yeah.
What like it's
Mm-hmm.
one step removed from what's actually happening. I
It's
think
white
clear
sand.
bases are a
Sure.
really good idea
Mm-hmm.
to sort of bridge that gap. Now,
Mm-hmm.
where it falls down is the fact the thickness of that clear base is just mental. Like why they were
Mm-hmm.
made at like 5 mil thick, bigger than more
Right.
than that. So you have this massive spacer. Don't know. And on screen, this I put this up on screen actually. This particular one is because they're really nice models on clear
Mm.
bases,
Yes, they are well.
and
Yeah,
it
they are
was
nicely painted.
yeah, it's weirdly one of the only nicely painted armies I could find on clear bases. So maybe going along with Miles as like the painting input side of
Right.
this
Okay.
issue.
Maybe
But
this is like a really big breaking point here because I approach miniatures from more artistic bent. I want to tell a story. I want to I want to do a lot of artistic stuff with it, right? Whereas this modeler wants maybe primarily to game with their army.
But
So
then
the
you're saying it's that in a sort of the story sense, and that applies to your painting.
I'm saying the
But
approach changes. I
yeah,
approach a miniature to paint it for to tell a story. Just for the sake of it, I paint a miniature to tell a story, whereas other people paint miniatures to get on the gaming table.
but in that is their story. In
Yes, exactly.
the
Yeah,
game
sorry,
being their telling of the story is what I
I'm
was
not
getting
framing
at.
this very well, but okay. So when I paint a miniature, I don't care how it's going to perform on the tabletop. I don't care. I want to make it look as best as I can, and I need the scene around it to be reflected on the base. I need the context of the miniature because the weathering plays into it. I could do things like put skulls. I mean, with the dreadnought I painted, with so this is part of the pictures that we have under the Sons of Horus dreadnought basing.
Mm.
It's that you have a fallen space marine underneath the tread of a dreadnought, and he's just reaching out to try and grab a melter bomb.
Yeah, I think we
Now
saw
the
this last
story is,
time in the
yeah,
City Fight bases, right?
is is he going to reach this before he's crushed to death?
Mm.
Will he finally take his revenge? I can't do that on a clear base.
Yeah, right. So and this is where I think the tech for this is where we need better tech in a clear base is that
Right.
less shine on that. You can't put any sort of off-angled movement. All the feet have to be flat to the base, or it
Yep.
doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why my armies are not clear based. Like I think on the top-down viewpoint, we've got clear bases where you can't really see them and they're on the table.
So you
It
keep
looks
referring to
almost better.
table. It's a table. It's a gaming
But that's where I'm
consideration.
yeah. But
So
my
that's where your
models
intention is
yeah
coming from. Yeah.
yeah in
Yeah.
that like my models when they're not displayed
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people's their models aren't displayed, they're just into a box
Yeah.
until they're next on a
Mm-hmm.
table. And I have prefaced this by saying I don't think we're there yet with clear bases, or whether we'll ever get there. I don't know because it just doesn't work as it is. And but that would be the framing is when I'm telling a story or imagining the story of that model. It's through the medium of a game and how that
Mm-hmm.
unfolds and how that model looking good like sets up to within shots or and pictures on that gaming
Mm-hmm.
table. So I think that's where the intention of
Mm-hmm.
the clear bases comes from. And we
Yeah.
could sort of like we'll get hung up on this, and it's not the main
Yeah.
point of the
Yeah.
of the video.
No, of
But
course. Yeah. I mean, we could both agree that clear basing is
it doesn't
awful and
work.
it shouldn't be allowed.
It
Yeah.
yeah.
It
Like
shouldn't be allowed. The consensus of the community is
he's
go to
just not
hell
there.
if you're a clear baser.
Well,
No.
he's just not there. He's just not there. I understand. I'm desperate to have like something that works that ties into every battlefield. Because you even called me a crazy man last night because I did 30 Marines with 4 different base styles and magnetized them for 4 different base styles.
I said that's a joke. I said that's a joke, but he's actually done it.
Yeah, because it's that would be solve the problem of clear base.
Yeah, life, you
in that
nerd.
they fit. Well, they then fit in, and then it wasn't worth it. Do you know what I ended up doing? I ended up making like 17 tables and running events myself, so that I had control over the tables that I'd be playing on. That was easier. That was easier than making an army with 4 different bases and all magnetized.
Mate, you need therapy.
I think we all do, Miles. I think we all do.
Yeah. None of us are well adjusted. Let's face it. Okay, so
Yeah.
we move into the, I guess, plethora of basing. It's not just one singular style. It's not dictated from a singular source like White Dwarf. Instagram, you got places like Instagram, Facebook, communities sharing all different kinds of zany ideas,
Mm.
ranging from everybody has their own take on a snow base and everybody has their own snow base recipe. Trench basing, we have Isfahan 3 basing, urban basing, that's using quite a lot of weathering powder, marble bases from like pre-made manufacturers from like Unreal Wargaming, desert bases done in the style of like third. But out there at the moment, there's just so many different styles. There isn't just one style of basing. But what I am seeing a trend now, we chatted about this a little bit, a trend is that the bases do tend to be black rimmed.
Yeah. Yeah, with some notable exceptions. Like I'm going to go back onto
Sure.
the Warhammer community picture just to
Yes.
show it because
Because
that
this is the modern style of Warhammer community style painting
yeah
and basing.
yeah. Now I think black rims, other than in examples of say you're harkening back to the red era with a very
Hmm.
red Chaos Lord and
Mm.
metal
Yeah.
vibes to your Chaos
Hmm.
Army.
Yeah.
I near universally think black base rims are the way to go.
Me too. Now, I have a slightly less interesting point than you. The black bases for me, they're the frame of the miniature. It separates the base from the tabletop or whatever, wherever you display it. But
Mm,
I mean, most of the things I paint are sort of like tabletop display, so they occupy that very unusual like gap in between. So if I put a miniature on the table, that black rim visually breaks whatever terrain I'm playing on away from the miniature. So I could kind of like mentally fool myself into thinking, okay, so if my Istvan army,
mm,
which is an urban themed army, is playing on a snow base, I'll have that mental separation by having that black rim base
yeah.
to it. How about you? Why is black rim
So you're
superior?
describing that in an active fashion. The black rim is actively breaking that table
Yes.
away from the base that you're on.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
actually see it as like kabuki theater style, where if let me say this, and then because maybe it'll be like the tray or a pile of dirt, and it's just this left field idea. But right,
I can't wait for this revelation. Okay.
so
Kabuki theater.
kabuki theater. What color are ninjas? Do you know what color ninjas are?
Dark red.
They're black because you don't see
Right.
black and you just ignore black on stage.
Okay.
You ignore
Uh-huh.
black, so ninjas are unseen. They wear black,
Okay.
and therefore you don't. They're the unseen elements within it,
Okay.
and you just purposefully ignore it, even though there's actually physically a human person there. You
Hmm.
ignore it
Hmm.
actively. So like
Okay.
in sort of like a mature telling of the base, by putting a black rim round it,
Hmm.
you purposefully that shows an element that's pure black. It's not a color that you see in
Hmm.
real life. It's
Hmm.
pure black. You ignore it as if
The
it's not
negative.
there. Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
yeah. And in the same way as like say a flight stand, what color do you leave it clear or do you paint it black?
Ooh, yeah, so I tend to leave mine clear unless I make a mistake, in which case I'll
Mental,
black it over. I leave it,
mental.
yeah, I leave it clear because that's, I mean, okay,
You
using
dirty
your
clear
own
stemmer.
using your own example. Okay, in that case, why don't you paint your bases black as the negative to use them on any
because it's the
gaming board?
because it's the frame to the model. As you say, it shows, but no, because it does look better to have a based model. Whereas the rim, there's always going to be a
Uh-huh.
rim of some sort that breaks that
Yeah,
that
and the
gap to the
acrylic rod.
ground.
So why do you paint your acrylic
Because
rods?
then you purposefully ignore it, and it's like it acknowledges that we're playing with a medium that's a model, rather than we're not saying this is real life. We're acknowledging that there are some downsides to the model as a
You're a
medium
hypocrite.
to do our
You're such a
stories
hypocrite.
through.
You're okay with blacking in the stem to ignore it, but not the base. Like they both see through acrylic.
It's too wide of
Hypocrite.
an area that can be addressed, whereas I don't think the rim of a base can be addressed, and I don't think
But
a
having just a
think a
completely
flat
clear acrylic base is fine.
the technology's not there. If the technology's not there, Mars, you realise we both switched positions on this to the other side. So you're not fine with with clear
Do you
bases,
know what the
but
answer
clear
is to
flight
this?
stems.
The answer to this, ultimately, I don't know how it could be done, but the answer is magnets.
I've tried it. You have to magnetize the entire table. But do you
They're
know
like,
what? Do you know what? I had a really good suggestion given to me a few years ago by
right.
Ian Big Hands. Hey, Ian Big
Uh-huh.
Hands. Um, anyone that knows Ian knows by Big Hands who I'm talking about. What you do is on all of your like sort of sand based whatever base materials on a board, you mix in iron filings
Oh my god.
with it, and then when this is for like bases sticking to hills. So when you go up a hill and it's too much of an incline, your magnet that everyone now puts on the bottoms of the bases sticks to that incline, and then you've got no problem with models falling over.
Oh, you could do some pretty gnarly cheating with that as well. Say if you're just in charge range, maybe if you take like a magnet and just gently edge your unit forward.
What, on the underside of the table?
Yeah, yeah. That's the new cheat. Never mind loaded dice. That's the next cheat. Magnetizing your miniatures and moving them with magnets. Having somebody underneath the table with like a very strong magnet moving things around.
Yeah, but that'd require not having iron filings in the board, otherwise you'd move the board as well. Oh, you could like edge cover in front of your models and stuff, I suppose. I can't believe you were a clear stemmer.
Yes, yeah, absolutely clear stemmer. It's less painting to do as well.
Do you know what? You get a Colourforge matte black spray because it's matte as hell, and just spray the stem.
Okay.
And then bam,
so
we just ignore it because it's like when do you prefer squatting down line of sight where you've got to get to the true model's line of sight, or do you prefer like, oh, you're 6 inches through a building so I can't see you?
True line of sight.
You prefer true line of sight?
It's more immersive for me.
Oh man, like, but that means you need to like, are we playing a war game and they're all like in these specific poses, and now I can see that dude's hand over that wall, but that's the only thing I can see, so. It's
I guess
not an acknowledgement that
when I go down to eye level, I can see the terrain from the miniature's point of view, and it almost becomes like a first-person shooter for me. Then I can visualize what they are seeing, whereas if I'm removed from it, it becomes a little bit more of a like detached exercise for me.
You see, I always like think of it like, do you know when you've got generals stood around a board, all you need is like a model shuffler, or one of them. Like flat edge at the front of a stick to push them around and be like, good move, yes. I think that's the superior way to play, especially fantasy when you're in squares. But yeah. So anyway, black rims. Why would you ever choose a like? So we've got a grey rim in one of the games pictures.
Grey. Maybe City Fight. Didn't the City Fight bases use like a grey rim?
Yeah, I think like a Codex grey when it used to be Codex.
Yeah, like a really dull neutral grey. Yeah, I mean the other times I could think of maybe introducing a little bit of colour into that base. If you're dealing with like really desaturated miniature, or there isn't much going on in the miniature anyway. I'm guessing the reason they used grey on this is because it's quite a big, colourful miniature. But yeah, I have no idea why they used grey for the base here.
Yeah, so we're against grey bases for people to.
We're aligned on that. Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Grey rims on bases should not be allowed.
Brown bases.
Brown or black. Those are the only. Or Goblin Green. Those are the only acceptable ways.
So you are pro brown, which like sort of
I'm pro brown.
Tying in the mud.
I'm pro brown. I'm pro black. I'm pro Goblin Green.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. I can see all of them, whether or not it's another style that we've got.
But grey can die in a fire.
Agreed. Yeah, so that is how I think people can tie in their base rims and what colours and why.
Yeah.
These some thoughts on the fads of basing from our own perspective.
What the hell have we just talked about? What on earth? What the hell is this episode? That was a weird. Okay. How do you base your miniatures, community? Do you go like do you do it purely to get something on there for the 3-color minimum, or do you do it to tell us to give greater context to the piece? What on earth do you do out there? What trends have you seen over the years? What trends do you like? Do you not like? Wind you up? What are you trying to achieve? What the hell are you doing with your lives?
Fire basing. That was a trend. Like lava in between the cork. That was the evolution of cork. Yeah. Well, as well, are people clear stemmers? Let us know. And do you tell a story while gaming, or do you think about the story while painting, or both? We've asked
Everybody's going to say both. Everyone's going to say both. Like, why
not
both? Everyone's going to completely I mean, I guess we tell stories in different ways there, right? Because telling a story, playing a game is a very different thing to telling a story, painting the miniature.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we've asked more questions than we've answered there, but I don't know whether I'm unhappy with that. I don't think I'm unhappy with that.
What is this? What are we doing? What is this?
I think it's time to leave, Miles. I think it's time to
Yeah.
leave.
Right, I'm going to go Goblin Green up a bunch of bases. And so in next week's episode, we've got a few ideas we've been keeping in... Oh, are we going to preview it? No, we're going to leave you waiting for it. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, let's do that. See you in a
Where
bit.
hell. Bye. You put black over the top, it picks up ambient light. It shines. Even matte reflects
Use a matte
light.
black, but there's
matte
so then
becomes
you
grey.
Then
the matter the black,
Miles,
the greyer it becomes.
Miles, come on, you've got to have at least some stage of like separation from it being a model. It's not real life, Miles. It's not real life.
The acrylic is the separation. It's the clear see-through element to it.
It looks childish. It looks childish.
But putting a black rim makes it look like... Well, I don't even know what it looks like. It's just... Why would you do that? You're making extra work for yourself.
I'm going.